Well, Sagamore Spirit is at it again. Their newest release in the Reserve series, their 8-year rye whiskey. How is this going to compare to the last release? Only one way to find out. Let's do this. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. So like I had mentioned, the newest in the Reserve series from Sagamore Spirit, a company that I absolutely love. Generally speaking, everything that they've been pumping out, it's something that I enjoy. Love that profile that they have to offer. This today that we're going to be taking a look at is the newest, or batch 2A, their 8-year from the Reserve series rye whiskey. And it's something that, as I was kind of hearing a little bit more from Brian at Sagamore, that they were going to be releasing this and making this more readily available versus the original batch, where I believe that was just a distillery only, and then eventually kind of worked its way out. Now this is a release that's supposed to get out to the masses or to the general public overall. So I'm really excited to be doing today's review. So again, we're talking about batch 2 of their rye whiskey. So mash bill on this one, again, like typical, it's a blend of a high and lower rye rye whiskey. So they blend those two together. So oftentimes you're getting a little bit of those earthy notes mixed with some of the sweet notes to create that ultimate balance that they're looking for. So again, age stated as 8 years old. Price-wise on this, for what this has to offer as we get into it, for 75 bucks, I think you guys are going to find out pretty quickly that I'm going to call this an extreme value in today's day and age. So we'll kind of dive into the review here real quick. We'll kind of first take a look at the nose, but again, we're taking a look at, from Sagamore Spirit, their newest release in the Reserve series, their 8-year rye whiskey. So let's take a look at the color. As you can see, this is a beautiful mahogany type of color. Really rich. Move the whiskey around in the glass. One thing I absolutely love right away is how oily this is on the glass. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there are legs for days on this glass. So it's already boding well for kind of how this is setting up. So, all right, let's go ahead and kind of get into the nose. Oh boy, so beautiful, beautiful, rich fruit. I'm going to say already it's a fruit for me that is, as bad as this may sound, but it is borderline getting to the point where it's starting to rot. And what I mean by that is the intense sweetness of that fruit. Let's call it more of the fruit fermenting than it is rotting. That sounds a little bit better, but it is an intense, dark, rich fruit note right away. Beautiful, beautiful, like cherry pipe tobacco on that. Beautiful baking spices on this as well. Those rich, like cinnamons, nutmegs, a little bit of like an anise or something that's there as well, without that part of it being overly dominant at all. It's a beautiful sweetness to it. Really rich, very well balanced so far on the nose. Again, I'll say the little bit of the mint note that's kind of combined with a chocolate. So I'm going to say a little bit along the lines of like an Andes candy, something like that. So you've got the blend of the mint and chocolate all in one. Nice, rich, like kind of caramelized brown sugar. So borderline getting to the point where that is turning into like a fresh caramel or like a butterscotch, something along those lines. Also a little bit of the earthiness. And I'll say this is probably where that high rye kind of kicks in. So I'm going to interpret that as a little bit more of not only the leather, but maybe like a black tea. So the black tea oftentimes can be a little bit more, let's say, pungent from the standpoint of more intense, something along those lines, where green tea can oftentimes be a little bit sweeter. It's not quite as intense. There's probably a little bit of that, but I would say the description to me is a little bit more of a bolder type of tea. It's a bolder nose so far on this one. Love the balance of the sweetness, the spice, that fruit note that's there. Again, more maybe cherry coming out. Again, that cherry pipe tobacco is really kind of standing out. Again, more of those caramelized brown sugars, maybe even borderline molasses, something like that. Yeah, I just love that rich fruit note that's on this. I mean, doing the blends of those two mash bills to create this and coming off of batch 1, which I'll say was a little bit more maybe on the subdued side, a little bit more kind of tamped down. This is much richer, much more oak on this one so far on the nose, but it'll be really interesting as we kind of get into the palate here in a second. But so far on the nose, absolutely beautiful, great balance to it so far. So I'm really excited to dive into the palate now. Cheers. Loads and loads of sweet oak combined with that rich fermenting kind of fruit that are there. Great spice on this, nice baking spices. I'll even say the rye spice specifically is kind of starting to shine on this one a little bit. So that high rye portion of the blend is really kind of starting to come to the forefront pretty quickly. So it is letting you know that it's a rye whiskey, but with those really nice, rich, sweet notes that are there. Again, with that sweet, like rich oak that it'll give you. I would say this coming off of batch 1A leads much more with the oak than the original batch did. I'll say very quickly also, like I was getting on the nose, that rich like pipe tobacco note really setting in, specifically cherry. A lot of cherry on this, and by cherry, I'm gonna say like more of a Luxardo. There's just this richness, quality factor that this has to it. It is an absolutely beautiful rye for me so far, and one that even at this point of the video, I would say it is a must buy, maybe even a backup of that in terms of what this really has going on for it. Also got a little bit of a spicy brownie, if that makes any sense. Almost a little bit of a chili pepper and brownie kind of combo without the chili being, you know, overly hot. There was just this nice like little kick of spice, but with a nice little chocolate fudge brownie, something along those lines. Beautiful note. I think this is one that as you sit down with it, it will evolve, it'll change a little bit. And that's the fun part of a really nice, well-balanced whiskey, or one that's blended really well, is that as you sit down with it, it should and will change a little bit on you to allow you to kind of explore some of the depths of that whiskey a little bit more. I hate to say like it's different and unique, but it is from the standpoint of what it has to offer. I'll say this is a slightly different rye profile. Not very often do you get it where it has this much like fruit. And again, when I say fruit, this is sweet fruit to the point where as this begins to like ferment and that extra sweetness kind of comes out, it is there. Also layered with those beautiful spices, the really nice oak, sweet oak that's on it. So those two things kind of combined for me are making this a home run of a rye whiskey. So one that I really look forward to kind of even getting into a little bit more, sitting down with and just letting it kind of do its thing. Yeah, even with that oak that's there, I'll say there is a little bit of a char aspect to it. So you are picking up a little bit more of, outside of just the oak, there's a little bit more of that like kind of barrel char influence. But again, it works really well with the sweetness that's there. So again, the blending of this mash bill is working really well. I mean, all of the components aren't necessarily sticking out like individually as you continue to sip it. You get this just combination of what it is that I'm describing all kind of at once, it seems like, as well balanced as it is, and hopefully that kind of makes sense. But I think with how they've blended this and put this together, it's just a beautiful, beautiful whiskey. More of those kind of custardy notes. Again, the mouthfeel, the texture, the richness, nice long finish. Has a great finish with that spice, oak, fruit that are there. It's really working very well. It's a strong contender already now into 2023 for one of those whiskeys that could easily end up in the, you know, overall top whiskeys of 2023. Definitely within the top rye whiskey category for sure. So again, I would say if you get an opportunity to get this when they are released. Make sure that if you're at your liquor store that it does say batch 2A, because there is a 1 and 2A. So you could get last year's. Hey, pick them both up, try them side by side. If that's something that works for you, even better. You'll start to see some of the subtle differences and kind of how I'm going to say amped up 2A is coming off of 1A. Much more of that Andes candy that's kind of coming out, combination of, you know, the mint, the chocolate. And again, like I mentioned before, there's a little bit of that chili pepper and fudge brownie, chocolate, mint, fermenting fruit that's there. It's just an overall fantastic whiskey. And again, I think for that reserve series that they put out, they just continue to kind of push the envelope. And it's one reason that I'm a huge fan of what it is that Brian and his team are doing over at Sagamore. So there you have it, guys. If it sounds like I'm kind of gushing over this whiskey, I am. I mean, this is a wonderful blended rye whiskey that they've put together. And if this is any indication of where they're going, not only with this, but the brand, you know, overall, I mean, the sky is the limit for what it is that they've got going on. So really excited to see where Sagamore continues to go from here, specifically with today's review of the 8-year Reserve Series rye whiskey. If you were on the fence whether or not to pick this up, I would say you're no longer on the fence. Just buy it. Great, fantastic whiskey overall. I think it has an awful lot to offer. As this thing opens up even more, I think it'll continue to get even better. So again, guys, thank you again for tuning in today to another review. Greatly appreciate all the support. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel or become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out the link in the description below, amongst the other links that are down there as well. A lot of other really fun things down there for you as well. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. And remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers. Make sure you find batch 2A from Sagamore Spirit. You will not be disappointed. Cheers, guys.